Today, we are talking about something that sounds almost unbelievable. Something so shocking that when people first hear it, they usually think it must be a mistake. But it is not a mistake. It is a real number, a real truth. And it tells us a lot about how the modern world works. Today's question is simple. How much wealth does the richest 1% own? But the answer? The answer is not simple at all. Because once you start exploring this topic, you discover that it's not just about money, it's about power. It's about opportunity. It's about how our world is structured. And it's about how a very tiny group of people controls more wealth than billions of others combined. So let's explore this step by step, slowly, clearly, and with simple, beginner-friendly language. Just like we always do on How Much Things. Let's begin. What the richest 1% actually means. Before we talk about the wealth they own, we need to understand who the richest 1% actually are. When we say 1%, many people imagine billionaires. People like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, or Warren Buffett. People with private jets, giant companies, and more money than a person could spend in a lifetime. But here is the interesting part. The richest 1% is not just billionaires. It also includes millionaires. And even some people who simply have valuable assets, like property or stocks, especially in wealthy countries. In fact, to be in the global top 1%, you usually need around $1 million in net worth. This includes your house, your savings, your investments, minus your debts. So the top 1% is a group of about 80 million people worldwide. Not 10 people, not 100, not 1,000, but around 80 million. But here's the twist. Even within this 1%, there is another smaller group, the extremely rich, the billionaires, and they own a huge part of the wealth inside the 1% itself. So when we talk about the richest 1%, we are talking about a huge group. But inside that group, the wealth is not evenly spread. It is concentrated at the very top. How much wealth exists in the world? To understand how much the richest 1% own, we first need to know how much wealth exists in the entire world. Global wealth today is around $500 trillion. That's half a quadrillion dollars. This includes everything: real estate, stocks, businesses, cash, gold, land, investments, resources, and much more. The richest 1% own around 45% of all global wealth. Yes, you heard that correctly. 1% of the people own 45% of everything. To imagine this easily, think of it like this. If the world had $100, the richest 1% would own $45. And the remaining 99% of people, around 7.7 billion people, would share the remaining $55. If that sounds unbelievable, that's because it is. But it's the truth. However, this number becomes even more shocking when we look at the top 0.1%, and especially the top 0.01%. Because the deeper you go into the top, the more powerful the concentration becomes. But let's continue step by step. There are around 3,000 billionaires in the world. Only 3,000 people, out of 8 billion, hold more wealth than billions of people combined. In fact, the top 10 richest people often own more than the bottom 3 billion people on Earth. How is this possible? Because wealth grows faster when you already have a lot. This is something economists call the compounding effect. If you have $1,000 and invest it, you make a small return. If you have $1 billion and invest it, you create massive returns. The rich are not just rich because they earned money. They stay rich because money makes more money. Why does the 1% own so much? There are many reasons, but let's keep them simple. Reason 1, assets grow faster than income. The rich own companies, stocks, land, and other assets. These things grow in value over time, much faster than average salaries. Reason 2, wealth is inherited. Many rich families pass down wealth through generations. The average person cannot do this. Reason 3, they have access to opportunities, better education, better investments, better networks, better financial tools. Reason 4, they pay lower tax percentages because most of their money comes from investments, not salaries. Reason 5, the global system is built to reward capital, not labor. People who own assets benefit the most. People who work for wages benefit the least. These reasons may sound simple, but they have a huge impact on how wealth is distributed. What if the wealth was shared equally? This is just a hypothetical question. It's not something that will ever realistically happen, but thinking about it gives perspective. If the world's wealth was divided equally among everyone, each person would have around $60,000, every single person. But instead, most people have far less. Some people have nothing. Some people have debt. And a very small number have billions. This is the power of wealth concentration. Which countries have the most 1% members? Here's something interesting. The 1% is not evenly spread around the world. Some countries have far more wealthy people. For example, the United States has the largest number of people in the top 1%, then China, then Europe, then Japan, then Canada, then Australia. In poorer countries, only a very tiny number of people make it into the global top 1%. So global wealth is uneven not only between people, but also between countries. The power of the richest 1% when you control almost half of the world's wealth. You also control influence. You control business. You control markets. You control innovation, and sometimes even control politics. This is not always a bad thing, because many rich people have created great things: technology, infrastructure, healthcare advancements, job opportunities, new industries, better living standards. But the problem is not whether the rich exist. The problem is the gap between the rich and the rest. Because the gap is becoming bigger every single year. This video is not about blaming anyone. It is not about politics. It is not about choosing sides. It is simply about understanding numbers, understanding how wealth flows, understanding how the world is structured. Because when we understand, we can make better decisions. We can plan better futures. We can think smarter. We can act wisely. Knowledge is power. And understanding wealth is one of the most powerful tools in today's world. Let's summarize everything we learned today. Global wealth is around $500 trillion. The richest 1% own about 45% of it. The top 0.1% own even more relative to others. Billionaires are only a few thousand people, but their wealth is enormous. Wealth grows faster at the top because of investments, inheritance, and assets. Most new wealth created in the world goes to the richest 1%. The wealth gap is growing, not shrinking. Understanding wealth helps us understand the world. This topic may sound complex, but when you break it down, it becomes clear and simple. The world is shaped by the way wealth is distributed, and the richest 1% play a major role in that. This was How Much Things, explaining the world in the simplest way possible. If you liked this deep dive and want more videos like this, make sure to follow, subscribe, and explore the next big question with us. Thank you for watching.